Yes, I'm going to talk about save on your resource consumption. That's kind of a hard subject for me because, as you see, I'm more from the business side. I always was. Now I understand a bit of the IT side as well. Especially nowadays, when you think about the recession that we have in Germany, there's often a problem. We have to reduce budgets, right? And the first things managers usually think is we have to drop projects, right? Because that project costs a lot of money, so let's drop it. However, talking to our consultants, looking at the projects, I see a lot of potential that you don't have to drop projects. You can start just reducing your consumption expenses because there's usually a lot you can do. So today, I'm gonna go through those things. I have a quick intro. I have then the 10 steps. Not everything made it to the 10 steps, so I still want to say something about it, so I added honorable mentions. And at the end, I have one summary slide for you. All right, so let's get into it. First thing, so what's the goal of an efficient data infrastructure? I know there's more than that, but I had that template, so stick with me here. Of course, you want fast query performance, obviously. You want to have good governance, you want to have ease to use, you want good integration between the tools that you already have or that you still need to use. You want to automate it to the limit, but of course, you need cost efficiency. So if you're able in your garage to build a great car, like, we had that today, right? You're able to build a great car. Let's say it's as good as a Porsche. But if it costs you 10 million to make every Porsche in your garage, it's still a shitty product, right? So there's always correlation to cost. You maybe have a great product, but if it costs way more to create than what brings it to your business, it's not really worth it. So cost should be always in focus. And I mean for everyone. I will come to that. So the first thing is understand your cloud platform. So every cloud provider invoices you for storage. So storage is a little bit different between those, but usually it's per gigabyte per hour, and then you summarize per month, and then you build for that. That's not really where the expenses are. The expenses are how vendors invoice you for compute power. And there's essentially three different things. The first thing is pay per instance and runtime. So this is where it all started when we had only on-prem, and then Amazon came with AWS, and then we had the possibility to rent, let's say, a computer on AWS, which is great, right? So you can pay for a chosen instance per hour depending on the instance size. So if you get a big instance, you pay more per hour, that's it, right? A renting principle. That's still there at Amazon Redshift On Demand, Microsoft Synapse Dedicated. Then there's a new thing, or relatively new thing. So there's, for example, pay per data volume queried. So that's really different from the first one. So for example, Google BigQuery, that's the case. And here, it doesn't matter how long your query runs, how complex your query is. The only thing that's important is how much data you query. And if you take that into account, that changes maybe a lot on how you look at your processes and how to optimize. Does everything work? Yeah. Yeah? Okay, guys.
Maybe you should put the microphone on your...
Better?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. All right, third one. So this is another great thing and a big thing nowadays is pay per compute power used, right? We heard about Snowflake, for example. That's one of them. So here you pay per use vendor measure. Vendor measure, it's, I think we don't have Snowflake here or something. So the vendors here, they have their own measures, right? So it's complicated to compare those guys. I don't like that very much, but they have it, right? So for example, you have credits in Snowflake, you have RPUs on Redshift serverless, on Databricks you have DBUs, right? But in the end, it's a measure of compute power, and you pay how much you use by them. So if you have a big machine and you use it for a certain time, you get paying for those credits, right? Some also combine those, but in the end, you have those three things. The important part is that you as a developer, as a manager, you need to understand how your platform calculates those costs. It must be part of the onboarding process. If you don't understand where the costs are coming from, you can't start optimizing. It doesn't work. You maybe optimize something completely wrong. That's maybe great, and you feel like on-prem I would have saved a lot of expenses, but it doesn't make any difference on the platform you're working on. So that should be in your onboarding. Then one sub-step, it's the only one, it's just for the first point. I didn't want to make a presentation on choose and the cost-efficient platform, right? But I still want to have at least one slide about it, right? So, and why it isn't straightforward. Obviously, your company has different needs, different setups, on similar platforms, et cetera. Your priorities are different, and your pain points are different. Some things to consider are, for example, the team background, right? So that makes a lot of sense. So if you use a tool in an environment or a new tool in an environment that you already have developers in, you will save a lot of money on two things. First, onboarding is way cheaper. Second, they don't make mistakes. Especially in the beginning, mistakes can be really expensive, and you have a lower likeliness of that happening. The second one, obviously, is that architecture it already have. So if a company already uses a specific tools from a specific vendor, then it maybe makes sense to add something from a similar vendor if it's already well integrated. Then company size. And that's now becoming really important with this new measurements, how you get invoiced, right? And because expenses scale differently on different tools. So on the same platform is maybe way more expensive on a higher volume than another platform. But on a lower volume, it would be completely the other way around, right? So there's not just the one vendor that would be the perfect fit for you. It really depends on your company size as well. And then, of course, you have a lot more different requirements. I'm not going to go into that, but you have legal guidelines. You have maybe a special focus on a specific tool that you want integrated, et cetera, et cetera. But I'll give you one example from a company that I know really well. So that company is completely on a Google infrastructure, right? So use Google Drive and Google Mail and all that Google stuff, right? That company is really small, so they really don't have much data, right? So it's less data and Google environment. There, obviously, BigQuery can make a lot of sense for two things. The first thing is, obviously, the people already know how it works. So if you have the IT department doing the admin stuff, everything looks the same. It's similar build, right? Maybe already have reporting in the admin area, and you just work quicker with it. You have the Google Sheets that's integrated, so that makes sense. But secondly, not much data means Google BigQuery will be super cheap because you only pay for the data you query. So if you do a lot of different things, like really complex queries, you maybe try new things, or that company, sorry. It doesn't really matter as long as the data is not there, it will be super cheap, right? So it can make sense. I don't say it's the best choice. It really depends. If you have different requirements that don't make that possible, it's fine. But thinking about that is really important because it will make a huge difference between the vendors for the total expenses on your monthly invoice. All right, second, optimize your queries. First thing is calculate the costs. Credits are not costs. You need a cost, what it actually costs to run a query. And only understanding what a query costs doesn't really help you much. You need to understand how much it costs you for a month, for example. Because if you have one query that costs you X, Y euros, and you run it every 3 months, and you have another one that's cheaper, but you run it every 10 minutes, then obviously this one would make more sense to optimize first. Clear. So you should have a top list of the queries that are really expensive. In the end, it's Pareto principle, right? 20% effort, 80% outcome, right? So focus on the expensive ones. The others don't really matter. To optimize a query that runs every 6 months and doesn't really matter, who cares? It's maybe not the best query, but if it's no pain, who cares? Optimize it. I'm not the technical expert here, so I give you just some examples, right? It could be a longer list. There can be way much more to be done. But for one thing, could be reduce data as soon as possible. So select only columns you actually need, where clauses in the beginning, and get rid of join explosions. There are also set timeouts on queries. If you do that, that query maybe doesn't even come to your top list, which is great. And then after you've done, recalculate, get a new top list, work on it, right? And work on it regularly. Next one, define responsibilities. So that's maybe the most obvious one, right? So you need an owner. Everybody understands that, right? You have an instance, you need an owner for it. So if something goes wrong there, you have someone you can ask. Simple as that. Set end date. That's really specific, but it can help you a lot. So there's a lot of instances you maybe need for operations that runs forever. That's fine. But you will maybe also have a lot of projects or academic projects or whatever projects that have an end date. Setting an end date can help you a lot because you know, okay, at that time that thing is not needed anymore. So the DevOps teams understands can be killed, right? They don't have to ask you, there's an end date, they kill it. If something went wrong, it's your fault because you set the wrong end date. However, you don't have the issue, you come back from vacation, you have a big invoice and thinking, what happened? Oh yeah, I forgot to turn it off. Thank you very much. Tags. Tagging obviously makes sense as well. You have cost centers, department. If you're a bigger company, you need it anyways. However, define your own tags. If you don't tag correctly, you have big issues in the monitoring. That obviously comes later as well. Think about you have a specific project and you have many instances for the project, and maybe one instance is used for 2. But the thing is, if you don't tag from the granularity in the right way, you maybe can't later separate the cost for a certain project. And if that's not already in cost center and department, you maybe define your own ones, right? So later on, you actually understand what's needed for a certain project. So if you come later to that, reserve it, etc., you have the right numbers. Done for who and purpose. Can be a sentence, whatever it is, really important. If you run something, you should understand why it's there. Who needs the data? For what is it? So if there's maybe an issue, or maybe you see later it's not used or whatever, you know for who the data is. So you can actually ask the person or the department if it's still needed, if there's issues, or you have any problems, you just know why it's there. Because often you have discussions between the developers. Why is that there? I don't really remember. We built it for that case, blah, 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 right? Just put it there, and it's there. And with that, you can start to gain control over your environment. Next one, implement monitoring. So a good overview obviously is needed. You need alerting systems. Without that, you can't be cost efficient if you don't know what's going on. You need a focus and a regular focus from management to identify issues early, and then you can steer out of the problems early in the process and not after 3-4 months. You also need feedback to the team, normally through the retrospective, to improve the cost sensitivity in the team. First thing you need to do, obviously, define your KPIs. So what do you actually want to look at? Second one is visualize it. Visualizing obviously helps. You have a picture, you understand problems quicker, it's red, it's an issue, it helps. But what it also does, if you start doing that and you're doing it more detailed, it's kind of a free gap analysis as well. Because while building that, you maybe find out, shit, I can't even, separate this project from the other one because the tagging is wrong, or it doesn't really work, or we forgot tagging here, or there's an issue. But while you're doing it, you will get a lot of user stories out of it to optimize it, to actually get a good visualization and a good dashboard about whatever you want to know. For example, utilization, costs, etc. Then alert systems. So budgets is reached, send an email out, or send a chat message through Google Chat or Slack or whatever tool you use. Alert responsible persons and add automatic suspensions. Suspensions can help as well. And then meetings. I know everyone hates meetings. I understand that. But that meeting helped us to halve our cloud expenses. Just that one. In the beginning, it takes a bit longer. Later, it's really, really quick. And you need a meeting where you have certain people, usually DevOps or FinOps, the manager of your team or team lead or whoever is responsible, and maybe a third higher manager as well, that only focuses on costs. What can we do? Where were the issues? What did we do really well? Where were the screw-ups? What can we do in the next sprint to maybe improve on that? But you will never get that in your usual sprint with the developers. There's not a focus there. You need a separate one where it's actually focused on nothing but costs and what you can do to improve it. That meeting will save you money. I know it's a meeting sucks, but it will save you money. And then some pro tip for bigger corporations. Think about getting a FinOps expert. Because cloud expenses changes all the time, right? And there's new services, and you don't understand which would be the cheapest way to achieve a new data product. But if you have a person that does nothing else but focusing on costs and understand where the costs are and what's the cheapest way to achieve your data product, it will help you a lot. It can be one person for multiple huge teams, right? But if I ask you what it costs to run that query or what the changes are, you probably don't know. But to have one person who actually has time to look into that can help you a lot. But obviously, if you have 5 developers, to add another full-time person to not just only do that, that's not really feasible as well, right? All right, automatic scaling. There it depends on which type you're running, right? So for example, if your pay per instance runtime, instance capacity double per level. That's pretty sure everywhere the same. So schedule runtime with batch jobs, obviously. You can scale automatically down if the utilization reaches a certain level, for example, under 50%. Of course, you have to check if query runtime is important. Maybe it's not if it runs per night, right? If you make a smaller instance, it takes longer. But maybe you don't care, and maybe you can save costs with that. But look at it, find your KPIs, and then do it automated. Pay per data volume carried, yeah, there you can really do anything, right? The tool does everything for you. So you can do outscaling if it makes sense to increase performance. So if you increase performance for the same price, that's also more cost efficient, right? Because for the same money, quicker to go. But you can't really reach cost advantages there. If you pay per compute power used, there's multiple things you can do. Here you can do a lot, which is great, but also, work. One thing that for me was really interesting when creating new slides was, for example, Snowflake. It can make sense to scale up to save money. Sounds counterproductive, but at Snowflake you have a thing that's called spilling. That's an issue. So if the query is too big for your instance, the RAM is full, then it goes to the next level of storage for the data that you query, then it goes to SSD, and then later it goes to external HDD, and then it gets really slow. That means in the end, if you have a smaller instance, you maybe have a query running for 2 hours. If you double the instance, it maybe runs only 40 minutes, which means you save costs and you have a higher performance, which is a win-win. So data spilling is an issue. So try to prevent that. Scale out performance, it can also work really well on that. So there you have also maybe a better performance on multiple instances. Control delivery usage. So this is the typical thing we work in, right? So if you use a story, you build, you review, deploy, use. Then you have another user story, build, review, deploy, use. User story, build, review, deploy, use, and so on, and so on, and so on, and so on. So you build a lot of great stuff. But the problem is, at one point, they don't use it anymore. They don't care, right? I give you one example, cash dashboard, right? So back in the day, if you had 3 different bank accounts, you don't understand what your balance is. Now you have multi-banking. If you're a small company, maybe that's enough. You maybe don't need a dashboard anymore. Maybe there was a lot of queries behind that. That's still there. They're still maintained. If there's an issue, everything, the developers go there, oh no, the important dashboard, and they solve it, and they use a lot of resources on repairing stuff that's not used. So it's completely useless and costs a lot of money. So you need to understand the lifetime end of your data products as soon as possible. You can do that, for example, review logs. You can build logic on that. For example, the table was not viewed in, 3 months. Then maybe they don't need it anymore. Then if you have a purpose, you understand what it's used for, you can ask them, hey, you still need that? No, you don't. Okay, let's kill it. You also need to give the data product users the possibility to tell you really quickly and easily if they don't use something anymore. They should understand that they should tell you that. Because it's not used anymore, you can kill it. Kill it just doesn't mean, stop the queries, but it could also mean delete the data. Deleting data is great because, yes, you don't have the data anymore, you don't need to maintain it anymore. But it's also great because if you look at a schema and you have built more and more and more and more, but half of what you have is trash, that's not really nice to work with, right? That's why with a business world with the 100 satellite, for example, you can't really work with the 100, so you need it easier. But it's the same thing in the end. If you have an information mart and you have, I don't know how many tables, but half of it is bullshit, just delete it, if you can recalculate it anyways, right? Which you should be able to. And that makes less trash, and the analyst will be quick as well. Incremental load versus full load, one sentence of one of the consultants, virtualize until performance dies, so I put it here. So in the best case, raw data vault, pits, bridges, materialize, everything else should be virtualized. But if you load new data, you have incremental loads and you have full loads. Incremental loads, only new data is inserted, old data can be removed, but you should tag it as removed, so your audit is fine. You can store history, and obviously it uses less compute power. Full load, it's a full load, right? It completely recreates everything. I think I don't have to explain it to that audience. So in general, go for incremental, because it should be most cost efficient, in 99% of the cases. Full load, if there's a business rule that you always need an exact copy from the system and you need it there, then that's what it is, right? There's always some exception to any case, but usually, please do the incremental load. Another one, adjust, refresh, and schedule rates. So some stupid things that cost stupid money. You have a virtualized information mart, which is great, and a dashboard needed for a monthly review session. You query on it every 5 minutes in the dashboard. That's stupid. Power BI dashboard queries every 5 minutes against a pit table with monthly snapshots. Kind of also stupid. Maybe not that expensive, but still stupid. Query calculates against daily batch load data every minute. Also stupid. The thing is, if I am a manager, and I have a dashboard tool, and you show it to me, it's great. And I can click live connection, it's also great. And then it asks me, how often do I want to refresh that thing? I obviously take the quickest one. I don't care if I have a monthly session or a 3-monthly session, because every time I look at it, I don't have to wait until it's loading, it's there. It's awesome. Of course I want to do that. But now I know that that doesn't make sense. But maybe the people using it in your company don't know that, and they do that. So communicate and let them understand that it costs money to query data, especially if there's virtualization behind that. So you can solve that by many different things. There I have 2 more points, because then the slide is over. Schedule report for management with DevOps teams, adjust dashboard include from live connections, local copies, maybe that's enough if it works. Just explain it to them, use it more efficiently, you will save costs. Then another one, already talked about it, but here I want to get it back together. First, transparency to developers. We had the onboarding already, so they should understand how the data works. They should have the access to the dashboards and alerts, so they see it, and you should check it out regularly. And you discuss successes, screw-ups at retro, right? Otherwise, it's never there. You should think about it. If you're a developer, think about, do you know what the costs are of your work? If you have no idea, that's maybe an issue. The second one is to business users as well. So I'm a business user, right? So if someone comes to me and I have a requirement, I expect them to ask me, how often do we want it updated? Obviously, that question everyone can ask. The second one is maybe more complicated. So for example, if a product owner has no understanding about costs, you maybe already have an issue. There should be a back and forth. I don't want something for any price. I want something. But then I expect a discussion. So tell them, yeah, that's a really difficult requirement. We could build it, but it would probably cost you 1 million. If we drop that column, it would maybe be half. Or let's get down in the updated time at least weekly and not monthly and not weekly, so we cut costs in a quarter. But it should be a discussion. At least a Scalefree it is, and helps me a lot, and I expect that. If I give you a user story and you build it and it doubles our cloud expenses, I will be pissed, because I would expect you to tell me that's a shitty idea, right? So don't take anything from a business user and just say, all right, let's build it. Discuss it. Maybe it's a stupid idea. You can be honest about it. They will be happy about it. So do that. And suggest alternatives. Obviously, should be a discussion. Don't say no. You usually can't, but you can discuss it. Next point, get expert at the beginning of a project. So here's a typical thing that happens a lot, right? So if a project planning, project setup, project start, and then you hit a wall, and you hit another wall, and you hit another wall. And after you hit the third wall, you think about, maybe, I don't know, reading the book was not enough. Maybe let's get training and consulting. Does need to be at Scalefree, but that comes really late. The problem is maybe now you're already operational. Now we come in, or this consultancy, whatever you choose, comes in and sees, oh, here you really screwed up. Oh, that really hurts. We can fix that, but now it's going to be super expensive. Because the screw up is really big, it's there, it's operational, we can't just drop it and create a new one. That is really expensive. The better way, obviously, is get it, sorry, let's do that again. This one. Get it in the beginning. Plan your project, get training at least, then maybe some consulting, they help you set up the project and help you making stupid mistakes, prevent you to make stupid mistakes in the beginning, and that will help you to actually get the success you want to have, right? So just do it earlier. You will need less of it, right? And you will have less pain. Some honorable mentions at the end. So first thing obviously is reserving. Reserving is really important. In a cloud environment, usually can do reserve for the follow-up year. That saves you a lot of costs. However, you can only do that if you have a good reporting for the last year. If you want to extend project X and you don't know what you needed for project X, it's going to be a tough time to understand what you should reserve for the next year. So if a good monitoring in place, it makes it easy for the upcoming year to save a lot of money with reserving instances. Upscaling, yes, or I put it later in the slide as well, but here again, bigger warehouses can not only be faster, but save you costs. Outscaling is a great tool in data vault. It works great, so use it. Utilize your DevOps team to build cost-efficient dev test environment pipelines. That is super important. Here's a lot of money wasted if everything is manually. Yes, here you need investment first, and then you get the outcome. So as Scott said, the time frame is a little bit longer. But good DevOps will help you a lot, not just to get risk down, but yes, also get costs down, right? You don't need to copy the whole production to test, obviously, but you should have a good DevOps team that gives you the data that you need, right? Or you have Snowflake. Then don't see budgets as available cash to burn, but what it is. And budgets usually are estimates by management. So what happens a lot, and someone comes to me and says, hey, Christof, I want to build that and that. How much budget do I have? Like, I have no idea. Like, obviously, as less as possible. What do you want to achieve? How much do you think it takes? And then I can make a decision. I know if I tell you 1,000 euros, it will cost 1,200. If I tell you 500, it will cost 600. But the thing is, tell me what you need, and then we can make a combined decision if it makes sense or not. But obviously, it's as less as possible. Management has no idea how much it costs. They maybe have budget restriction overall in a company, but regarding your project, it's an estimate, nothing else, right? So work with that, be honest, try to find the right way, and then you will have a better time, and your management will have a better time as well. All right, to sum it all up, there's many possibilities to reduce expenses. I hope I had a few new ones for you here, but there's many possibilities that you have. The most important one in general is to get cost efficiency in focus. If your team is not on board, nothing will change. So you will need to get your team, the whole team, means management as well, to understand how it works. Then the Pareto principle helps you a lot, right? If you start with the top list, see where the real expenses are, optimize that. You will optimize enough with 20% of the work. The last one is just another hard thing for me. Don't waste resources. You don't see it that you use it if you're in the cloud, but it's still hardware that's there, it's burned, it's thrown away. That's the world we live in, but now it got, invisible, but it's still there. So if you waste less resources, you not just only save money, but the environment is thanking you really much as well. That's it. Thank you very much for listening. And if there are any questions, now is your chance. Thank you.